So welcome everybody. We are so excited to not only have somebody that we call a friend, but also a mentor with us today, Coral, please. So welcome, Coral.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for asking me.
And normally we start by reading a bio, but I really just want you to talk about your journey because there's so much, like we could spend hours just introducing you, but I think where to start is in 2008, you opened a salon in a recession.
Yes, we did. So, you just think about everything in these last couple of years. I've kind of been through everything. I had a fire in a salon, then I opened a salon in a pandemic. In a recession, and then I went through a pandemic. But yes, so we opened in 2008. And since then we've grown to, we had 3 locations, but we closed one. So we have the 2 locations and the academy and the salon in Connecticut. And then now opening one with Kelly, one of our stylists. And so we've done all that in 14 years. So we're pretty excited about that.
That's just amazing. Like I said, you just are always doing something. And what I love so much about you is the foundation of your business model, I guess you could say, is education.
Yes.
So talk about the education side of it.
Okay. Well, like many salons, ours is we handpick and grow our own, which is why we love your school. And we're so excited to have one in Sarasota. And they go through the Protege Academy, which is inside our salon. And it takes a year to 18 months, to go through our academy while they're working as assistants. But what makes us unique is they also, after 90 days, get to work behind the chair. So they're working behind the chair at a lower price point, practicing what they're learning, and then continuing their journey. So even through everything, there's been times we've looked at that because it's very expensive and time consuming to do. But the 70 team members that we have, they're all quality, and it's because they've all gone, through Protege. So, we just keep plugging away. We have now created everything on video, just like you were talking about Zoom is. We put all of our classes on video. So now, before we had 3 educators, 16 students in class every Monday. It cost me $1,500 every Monday to open the door. So now we videotaped everything. They have a mannequin. So 1 week they practice at home, and then they bring the mannequin in the following week, and then they have the live models. So, they can always, they're on YouTube anyway learning, so they may as well be on our YouTube.
I love that.
Brilliant.
Something that I wanted to ask, because it comes up a lot with the ever-changing mentality, I guess you could say, and we have that microwave generation, so to say. Have you looked at changing your protege program? Just because we've found when we've talked to other owners and stylists that you hear a year, that's a long time for them to go through a program after just coming out of a school.
Right. Well, and it's funny because Tina and I will be together tonight talking about our industry, and I know it's changing. But I do think now with the videos, it's like they used to have to hit levels to graduate. Now they just have to test out. So I'm giving them the opportunity. In reality, they could test out in 3 months if they practice and did their models and tested out. So giving them a choice, I think, is important. And then also that they're working behind the chair, like they're working 2 days behind the chair, assisting 2 days. So they are working hairdressers. But I think if we were going to cut it shorter, it's something that we could do, but you almost need a full-time educator. And I don't want to do that. And at this point, we don't really have anybody that could do it full-time, but I do agree. It either needs to be cutting it for 3 months, but they're in class every day for 3 months, or doing this. So for now, this has worked. And, it's a challenge for everybody. Recruitment and retention has totally changed. But I think also being more flexible with the work schedule. We've started out that from the beginning, and, alternating weekends. And so we've definitely done a lot, but at this point, I still stand behind the education, and, it's not for everybody. We're about quantity, not quality. So that's okay. But then once they hit the floor, like we have so many students from the Fort Myers school, and once they're graduate and hit the floor, like they see it. I mean, they have a full book and they're busy. Like, it's great that they want to do Instagram and take pictures and do all of that, but the salons are busy. I think all of my friends I talk to are in the same place. Like, there's plenty of business, that's for sure.
Yeah, plenty of business and not enough hairdressers. So we
Isn't it
definitely
crazy?
have a hairdresser shortage out there for sure. More
Yeah.
clients than hairdressers. And so I would love for you to talk about this. First of all, 70 staff members, like, hello, how many of us really have that many staff members? So kudos to you, Coral. This is why you're our biggest mentor in the industry and why we keep having you back time after time on this podcast.
Thank
And
you.
I love the fact that you have this 90-day program where they can get on the floor right away. I think that's huge at a great protege price point. It's incredible. Every salon should be following this model that you're talking about, right? And so can you talk a little bit about that? Because how do you manage that? And how do you manage the great service? And so,
Yes.
and also, how do you manage your managers from not freaking out over it? Right? Because I think that's the biggest challenge. Like, oh my gosh, they can't do work as good as me. Of course they can't. It's okay. So
No.
talk about that. How's that worked for you?
Well, it's funny because it was my educators that did freak out. They're like, no way, they're not ready. We can't do that. I go, they graduated cosmetology school. They know how to cut hair. They may not know French 100%, but listen, they can do it. So when they're first on, it is they bring in, it's their friends, their family, their, everybody. Once they get through that rotation of cutting, which is 8 weeks, then we open the book to start giving them guests. So managing the front desk, that anybody that sits in there, we really don't promote protege and we don't advertise for it. And the big mistake that happens is someone calls and they really want to get in and we don't have an opening, so then they put in with a protege. They don't do that anymore. It's like, I'd rather someone wait a month than get with a student and not know that they're a student. But their capes say protege, they have things on the mirrors that say protege. And then, like, even this week, I had a young girl that came in and wanted blue hair. And she didn't understand that, you had to pre-lighten it, platinum card and then blue. And I go, and Bree wasn't at that level to do that, and she was upset. But I'm like, they don't start something they don't think that they can, handle. And then they have 70 people or at least 40 people around to ask. And they're really good about asking for help if they need it.
Yeah, and I love the fact that they have so many stylists that they can lean on, and kind of talk about that, because I think that's really huge. And this is what we hear from our stylists in our salon as well, versus if you're working alone, in a salon and you don't have someone to bounce ideas off of. And we even have, stylists, including my daughter, that have been in the business for quite a few years, and they just love to have that different perspective all the time. Talk about that.
Well, you stand in front of the color bar and you'll see the stylists asking each other. I mean, so I think that's great. We've always had that mentality, and the stylists think nothing of asking someone else to come over and help them. And instead of being embarrassed in front of the guest, it's like just, getting that confirmation. So we've always been very much that way as stylists. But the proteges, there's always an educator, around or on the floor, or Travis and I. So, but the other stylists come over and help them, which is why the only reason this could work is if you have a great cutting system. So when they show them a picture, we could say, that's mesh in panel 2, exterior in 3, and interior in 4, which sounds Greek to other people.
Right.
But to our stylists, the young stylists are like, oh, okay, I know how to do that,
It's huge. Can you talk about, I want you to go back, because you said that you are partnering with your First Stylist. And talk about that, because this is something that Sean and I have been coaching all of our salons to do, to come up with a different model, if you will, because we've had a lot of, we talk about it, it's like 50% of walkouts of people going to salon suites, right? Because people want to open their own business. And so you and I both are giving that type of career opportunity for our team members. So talk about your system that you're using with that.
Okay, well, our first one was in Connecticut. So obviously she didn't really get the benefits of brand recognition, but she did get the benefits of multiple location discount with the manufacturers and our website and our social media and everything else that we do. But you're right, Tina, when you're losing them, and I see it, I have these incredibly talented stylists that hit master level, bringing in $4,000 and $5,000 a week. What is the goal? What are they supposed to achieve after that? And so we came up the model. I mean, for $2,000 more than you're going to pay for a room and a suite, you could have a salon, a small salon. We figure that 1,500 square foot is a perfect model, 10 stations. And, but we help them from the time they sign their lease to the day they open, but it is a license agreement. So I'm not financially involved at all. I'm just, after they get open, it's coaching and mentoring. So we're really excited. And Kelly is a Paul Mitchell educator. She's a powerhouse. She's going to be amazing. And she needs to be a salon owner. And I'm happy to be able to help her do that.
Yeah. And the good thing is you're keeping an eye on those leaders, those next level leaders, as a leader yourself, an incredible mentor. Talk about that license agreement, exactly what that is, so other salons know what you're doing.
Okay, so there's not the big difference between franchise and license agreement is it's not so binding for either one. The contract isn't like as binding as a franchise, but you have everything, and either party has 90 days to be able to get out if it's not working. Because sometimes, we've all had partners that didn't work. And so being able to have that flexibility, but the intellectual property and the brand and everything, if they leave, is left, with the company. So it does protect you, and you have your guidelines. And but it's just not as binding as a franchise. I didn't see myself opening Cutting Looses around the country. So for me, I wouldn't do it with anybody unless I trust them. And so it works for us now.
And I'm sure you recommend that salons hire a lawyer to help draft the agreement.
Yeah. So now our royalty is 5% off the top. So it's off the gross. Because even my accountant, when I was first telling her about this model, because I have 2 other stylists that now are looking into it.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, they're such big hitters, you're going to lose so much money. And I'm like, 5% off a salon is a lot more than, 50% off a person. And she's like, well, I never, thought about it that way. So it's going to be great. And
I love that you're schooling the CPA.
In our industry anyway.
I love that so much. And before Sean takes over with the rest, my biggest question tonight, because I know we're getting together at your salon, and I want you to talk about this event that you're putting on, because I think salons from all over the country need to be doing this model of what you're doing tonight. This is hot off the press, you guys. It's happening tonight.
And Tina's going to be there because she always says yes, which is great.
Of course.
Well, I belong to Intercoiffure, and when we were in Chicago in April, the whole conversation, everyone, was recruitment and retention. And I sat on a board with Stephanie Fox, which is an amazing, an amazing. So we did a 16-week recruitment. But when we were there, it was like the big challenge that we found is in schools is the students are on Instagram or on YouTube, and all they're hearing is about be independent, be an individual, don't go, work in a salon. And a lot of the instructors are also telling them that, which blew my mind. But many of them have never worked in a salon, working 3 days a week and taking home $100,000 a year. So they didn't know that possibility was available. So I came back. I'm fortunate to have 3 Intercoiffure salons in my area, and then some amazing schools, but they've never even met. So like Tina will be there, and we have 4 schools and 4 salons. And it's really just having transparent conversations on how can salons help schools, and then how can the schools help the salons, but also know the difference. Like, why would you recommend a student to come to a commissioned salon? So, and it's the first, so we'll see. It'll be very raw, and then we'll grow from there.
Yeah, I think it's incredible, because to be able to educate the entire beauty industry, especially the leaders that are leading our future professionals, our next generation. And that's
Yeah,
we're all about this. So I know I'm going to learn so much tonight. I'm excited, Coral.
thanks. I am too.
You mentioned a couple times flexible.
Oh yeah.
Talk about how things have changed since you opened in 2008, and
Yeah.
you talked specifically about the importance of a flexible schedule. And I know in our salons, we just were having that conversation that we need to kind of look at what that looks like and what the assistant program looks like, because people are just in a different place. So what are some changes that you've made when it comes to being flexible?
So many changes. I've always been, pretty flexible. Like I said, COVID wasn't such a bad thing. I mean, to our industry and to everybody, it really forced us to make changes that we never would have. And so one of the big ones was having 2 teams. So we had to, separate everybody into 2 different teams in case someone got sick. So they were working 3-day work weeks. And we really couldn't have assistants because you couldn't have multiple people touching a guest, right? So if I would have told them, just went in and said, okay, we're going to work 3 10-hour shifts and you're not going to have an assistant and we're going to do 1 guest at a time, because we double and triple book, because that's the only thing we ever knew. And they would have had a walkout, they would have been like, are you crazy? And a year later, they still enjoy 1 guest at a time. Our masters have gone back to double booking, but very not like we used to. It's like maybe a haircut in between. The assistants used to apply all the colors. Now they finish and blow dry, but it totally changed our model. But once we could have went back to full capacity, nobody really wanted to go back to working 5 days a week and or even 4. So the majority of them work 3 days a week. Fridays and Saturdays are our least busy because they alternate. Some of them don't work Saturdays at all. So once they get to be a senior stylist, bringing in $2,000 a week, their retention's there. The guests are going to come when they're there. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are our busy days, and Friday and Saturdays are, but at the end of the week, we were still bringing in the same amount of money when we were busier before COVID. So, that all worked out. But flexible, the word Steph taught me was autonomy. So I'm like, okay, like wrapping our head around giving them autonomy, giving them to be an individual and have choices, but still be in a team environment. So it's worked pretty well so far. And we just let go of our dress code. That was huge for me. We started bringing in a little color, like in the summer, we let them wear flowers and stuff, but it was really important to them. And so my big thing was, I don't want to be the fashion police. You guys have to manage each other. I just don't want it to get too casual. And so far that's been working, and they all look great. So we'll see. Lots more jeans, but no rips.
How did that conversation come about? Because I think a lot of times stylists or assistants have ideas, but they don't necessarily want to bring them forward. So how have you created that culture where it was like, hey, Coral, we got to do something?
Yeah. Well, I love it. I have another amazing stylist, Ella. She's our artistic director and she's amazing, but it was great because she came in, she goes, okay, I'm going to be the voice of the people. And she goes, and everyone's talking about it. And I would know you would want to know and everything. And so she was like, we really just don't want a dress code. Like everyone loves to wear color and this and that. And so the one thing I've learned now is don't say anything. Just say, give me time to think about this and we'll get back to you on that. Mm-hmm. Instead of going, are you crazy? But so thankfully when you say open door policy, I mean, I know a lot of some of the younger stylists are, more intimidated or scared, but the ones that have been with me long enough know that, hey, listen, I can't fix it if you don't tell me, and it doesn't mean that it's always going to go that way, but I do believe they're comfortable enough to come and tell me, especially if something's going on.
How have you created that culture where they can come and talk to you? Because are you still behind the chair one day, maybe? I can't remember.
Very little now. Like I was totally off for 5 years. And then I don't know how it happened. I lost a couple stylists that were doing my very good guests. So I'm like, well, you're going to stay here. So the next thing I know, I'm 3 days a week booked solid. So I had to let that go because I could see that was definitely, hurting my company. Like I just didn't have time to spend time on the team. My mentality, my thought process is I take care of the team and the team takes care of the guest. Well, I just didn't have time to, do that. So it's lots of conversations, and I was having a lot more one-on-ones. I felt like that was my niche and where I felt like I was good at. But after COVID, even for me, every owner, like I was getting burnt out. Like these kids had challenges that I didn't know how to fix. And so we hired an online company, and that's been kind of helping with coaching, but just having lots of conversations, but fierce conversations sometimes, but knowing that it always comes from a good place.
Yeah, it's everything. Coaching is everything, and learning how to be a coach. And
Yeah.
we're always talking about that in all of our companies, Coral. So can you talk about, what is some of the best practices that you've taken on with coaching, and how do you train your leaders to be better coaches, if you will? What does that look like?
Well, thankfully, we've been in your classes, Tina, and John Maxwell, and Fierce Conversations. And so I am a self-help junkie for sure. I have every book known to man.
Mm-hmm.
And but taking our leadership through, and but a lot of it is just asking questions. I think the big mistake that we make as owners and leaders is we want to fix the problem, just like a consultation, right? Like you're not fixing the problem. You just keep asking enough questions to where they come up with the answer on their own. So
that's just it. And so what would you say is the biggest thing that we need to do to retain? Because I want to talk about recruitment and retention as we continue on in this podcast with you today, Coral, because we know those are our two biggest things. So what would you say is the biggest leadership shifts that leaders in the salon business need to make right now, today, to retain their stylists?
Twofold. One is definitely the flexibility. Like we have to figure out a way that, we can't keep going. When I was when I was an
exactly.
So
Thank you for saying it, because that's the
so
elephant
true.
in the room.
Yeah, everyone. Well, I never, even the young hairdressers, it's funny. The ones that really had to work hard and 5 days a week and go out and do marketing and, networking. Now, nothing. But so we have to, get rid of that mentality, definitely being flexible, because a 5-day work week, full-time is not full-time anymore like that. I don't see it really turning back. So being flexible, but honestly, even for myself, like I had to get to this point where I wasn't fearful that they were going to leave. I think we all kind of got in that, like you want to retain them, but it has to be because everybody's on board and everyone still believes, we may not be in a dress code, but we have a culture code, and we have a brand code that has to go by. And so, getting back into having those fierce conversations, being transparent and honest. Like I've had stylists leave, and when they're, when they stop tagging you in the photos and they start doing this and that, having honest conversations and leaving before it's bad. Like I can honestly say 90% of the stylists or anybody that's left my company, we're still professional friends, and they left with integrity, and we actually hired a couple back. So that was great. But so that's leadership, amazing. Flexibility, but not being afraid to have the hard conversations. And so, I think those would be the two.
I love that you said leaving with integrity. Can you talk about that? Let's talk to the stylist now. Why it's so important, like whether your boss is a real jerk or not, let's still leave with integrity. So talk about that.
And I think that conversation happens in the very beginning. Like you don't wait until things are going bad. Like even in the interview process, like how many times do when you ask the stylist or the student what their goal is in 5 years, I want to have a booth. I want to be a renter. And I used to get offended by that. I'm like, why do you think you're going to come to me and I'm going to train you and then you're going to go out on your own? But now it's like, I totally understand that. And I think that's a good role model, a good model for some people. I hope that we give you everything you want to stay. But then starting that conversation, like, listen, when it's not good for either one of us, when it's not a mutual, a mutual gain, then it is time to leave.
Yeah.
And so I've let them go, and then some of them have left, but I do teach them all the time about, don't burn your bridges, because you never know. And the two that came back, they left with integrity. Both of them ended up getting out of the industry because they just didn't make it on their own, and then came back. So I do try to coach them. That's like a conversation in the beginning of working at Cutting Loose. It's like, when the time comes, let's both leave,
Yeah. I love that you said, don't burn your bridges, and something that you and I both have a policy too is not burning bridges in between salons too. And so we've said that before, and I've picked up the phone and said, hey, one of your stylists is actually coming to our salon, wants to interview. And so we pick up the phone. Is this something that you want? Is this going to be better? Because I've actually transferred stylists to your salon.
Yes.
Because I've said, I know that they would flourish more underneath your leadership and your programs. And because I want what's best for my stylists, and I can't always give everything that they need. And it's my job and my honor to really know what my people need. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Because talk about integrity. Our staff's not going to have integrity if we don't have integrity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, for us, we don't really hire, stylists, experienced stylists, unless they move out of town or, or something, and then move into, they'd have to be pretty amazing for us to, take them on. So I do agree. But with that being said, talking with my friends in Intercoiffure, we have to let them know, because if I had someone that wasn't a good fit for me, I would far rather they go work for my friend in a commission salon than go to be independent, unless independence is what they, wanted. So with that being said, we need to be like, there's an abundance, there's enough for everybody. I know stylists, we need to retain them, but I can honestly say I would rather they go and work for my friends or another Intercoiffure or another commission salon. They need to know that that's still an option, because right now when they leave a salon, it's because they think there's no other option but to go rent. And like I said, I have nothing against renting. I do believe it's the best step for a lot of stylists, but it's also, we've talked about that, wasn't it? Like 40%, when I heard this at Intercoiffure, 40% of the new stylists haven't renewed their first license. So that's 2 years. They're not even renewing their license because they're not in the industry. We need to change that. Like the schools, the salons, our voice, because that is scary.
Yeah. And you're taking the first step. I know you have a lot of great relationships with salons in your area, especially being an Intercoiffure salon, which is amazing organization, by the way. I highly recommend it. We have been a part of that as well. But also taking the first step of having an event in your salon, inviting other salons and other schools. And how cool is that? And to be able to say, hey, we want to be able to refer to each other. But you hit something that I think is really important that we talk about, Coral, is the fact that you were saying some people may need to work in a salon suite depending on their situation.
Sure.
So what is that situation? What does that look like? Because it's as a salon owner, we have to understand salon business. And when we bring somebody in, I take them under my wing. They're my children, and I want to do what's very best for them, business wise and personal wise. So when is it good model for somebody to follow?
I said, I learned this from Taylor, but there's two different team members. There's the basketball team that works on a team and it takes everybody to make it work. And then there's a tennis player, and that's an independent sport where you can't have a tennis player on a basketball team,
Right.
And when that shows up, when I start having the conversations, because and some of them do well. I've had girls that have left that have done very well being booth renters, and but then I've had other ones that just failed because it's a lot of work. I don't know how they think it's easier. Like you got to book your own appointments, take your own money, buy your stuff. So if you're a business, you still have to be business minded to be a suite owner. It is your own little business.
Absolutely. It's everything. Talk about recruitment. What's some things that we need to do differently that our salons are not doing? What are you seeing out there? What advice do you want to give?
Well, even with Intercoiffure, the best of the best, I was shocked how many salons hadn't been in their local schools. So, you know, us, I have a great relationship with all the schools because we've always been in all the schools teaching. But I think what we're teaching is changing. And my daughter, Taylor, you know, was an amazing motivational speaker, and Travis is an amazing partner in the financial business side. But it's great when you have both of those, but to go into school and get those students excited about coming to work with you. So we always went and did technical, you know, and that takes a lot of work again. Like you got to bring a stylist, you got to, and now we've put together these PowerPoint presentations, and now we just put one together with Ella from our photo shoot that we did with Orbe, and then she was just at Fashion Week in Miami. Those are the things, getting successful stylists to go in and talk to the students to show them what's possible. But the first thing is you have to be in your schools on a regular basis, you know, not just show up once and then you get mad because nobody sent you any students, you know?
Or don't pick up the phone and say, send me your best people. I'm like, are you kidding me? They're already taken.
Because what makes you think that's the place? But
Exactly.
He has a great relationship with the schools too, but it's definitely more on the business side. So
Great advice.
So as we kind of wrap up here, Coral, again, thank you so much for joining us. What is the final thing that you want to say to owners and stylists out there?
Well, I think, you know, after COVID, I think we were all kind of feeling like that when I hired Steph to help me with recruitment, because I'm like, is this model relative? Like, I really want to know, are we the blockbusters from years ago that didn't think we had to change? And so I do believe there's a model for everything. Like booth rental is there and it's never going to go away, but I don't really look at that as our competition. Ours now is other good salons getting great students and growing them into being hairdressers, but we're more relative than we've ever been. The other thing that came up is beauty's up 30% since COVID. And I'm sure we're all feeling it in our salons. Like we really have just never been busier. And it's a wide range of guests because we're a luxury salon, high end. So, you know, a lot of it is that, you know, 40 to 60-year-old professional woman. But now we have so many young people coming in, and we have, you know, all the trendy haircuts coming in. And so abundance is there. We're definitely relative, but learning to be flexible and doing some autonomy. And I think for the students, do your research. I am surprised how many students haven't really even been out looking for salons until they graduate. Well, you know, halfway through your journey, start going in. And I tell the students all the time, you're what everybody wants. So make sure you're doing your research before you decide where you want to land.
Amen. Coral, how can people find you?
Cuttingloose.net. So, and Instagram is just my name, Coral Pleas. But I practice what I preach. My Instagram is all about my grandkids and, you know, and my travels and stuff. But Cutting Loose.
It's our season we're in. Thank you, Coral. I love you. I will see you tonight.
Too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Coral. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.